battery tender Global Mazda MX-5 eSeries, brought to you by Mazda and by Ricmotech Racing Simulators.
We've seen a lot over 150 years. That doesn't mean we've seen it all.
A successful opening round to kick off our E-Series, and back again 1 week later. At a click of a button, we walk 1,000 miles west to the Circuit of the Americas, located in Austin, Texas, in the United States of America. It hosts the second round of the battery tender Global Mazda MX-5 Cup E-Series, presented by BF Goodrich and Ricmotech Simulation Racing Systems. Welcome along to the coverage, folks. It's Jonathan Simon alongside Mo Murray, Tom Long, and Tony Laporta will be joining us for the first time in our virtual environment. And Mo, welcome back. We'll start with you. What an exciting first round at Barber, here to commence action yet again in virtual Texas.
Thank you, Jonathan. And yes, Barber, tight confines, not a lot of open room at that racetrack, and it's hard to get away from each other. We saw a great race. Matt Cressy won from Gresham Wagner. This is a different type of racetrack. Yes, there are technical sections, but there's a couple of really big long straightaways where the drivers have room to draft, room to move around and make passing maneuvers. The thing to watch at this race is one of the veterans of this series, a guy who knows so much about these cars in real life and is a very accomplished sim racer. Stephen McAleer was taken out in an accident on the first lap last week. He's looking for redemption this week. So will Matt Cressy and Gresham Wagner have it all their own way, or will Stephen McAleer get up there and put the cat amongst the pigeons, as we say?
We'll wait and see. And Tom Long, 30 meters of elevation change around here. The highest point at turn 1, a very technical braking zone.
It is. I mean, certainly you talk about the elevation in turn 1, but this whole circuit lends itself to very demanding sections through the S's. The big thing we're excited about tonight is about 5 passing opportunities per lap. So we're going to see a lot of mixing it up throughout the entire field.
Perfect. And we've got Tony Laporta joining us for the first time. You are in the virtual commentary booth for the first time, Tony. It's great to have you.
Thanks, guys. I am really excited to be here. Enjoyed watching everything in virtual Alabama 1 week ago at Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. This track, traditionally the season opener for the first 2 rounds of the battery tender Global MX-5 Cup. It might be weekend number 2 here in the E-Series, but it's still going to be really close, really exciting racing. Can't wait to get going. This is going to be a lot of fun.
And the drivers are currently in a qualifying session. The talk of the town is just getting a lap in qualifying, because the stewards will delete lap times very strictly if the drivers do cut the track at certain points. And it's certainly possible at this wide layout at the Circuit of the Americas. But for now, though, we'll be joined by Chaplain Jason Holt, who presents to us today's invocation.
Let's pray. God, we just thank you so much for technology and the opportunity these drivers have to showcase the amazing talents that you've blessed them with. God, we just pray for today's events that things would go smoothly and that we can have a great and a fun time of racing. God, we just pray for the series, that as discussions happen of bringing us back together, that, Lord, you would be at the front of those, that you would be with our government and all of our leadership around the United States, Lord, as things open up, that you would guide and lead each and every one of those decisions. We just thank you that we can lift all of these things up to you in the name above all names. In Jesus' name, amen.
And now, our national anthem. Performing from Dallas, Texas, Russ Ruddock.
back here at the Circuit of the Americas. Qualifying is concluded, and it's time to look at our grid for today's event. And TLP, it is Matt Cresci with pole position to his name ahead of the ever quick and young Brian Lockwood in that 6 sideways Mazda machine.
Yeah, a great run for Matt in qualifying after knocking out the victory last week at Barber in Alabama. Brian Lockwood starts alongside him on the outside of row number 1 from 6 Sideways Racing. And then Gresham Wagner, who had a really good run last weekend, almost got to the line in time, finishes second right behind Cresci. And then Mo Murray, you got Celine Roland, a former Mazda Road to 24 scholarship winner, starting in the outside of row number 2 in 4th.
Well, not only a former scholarship winner, but as we're racing here at COTA, remember a couple of years ago, Tony, when he was brand new in the real world battery tender MX-5 Cup series, he came into his very first weekend in these cars, got a 3rd place in his first race, and started the 2nd race from the back of the grid because of a penalty. And on that slightly wet, slightly drizzly track, he went from dead last to winning his first MX-5 Cup race here at COTA. So he knows his way around this racetrack, and Celine is hungry. He didn't do so well last week. He had a car issue, and he is hungry for a win here.
Justin Piscatell and Harry Voigt make up 5th and 6th. Then you've got the young Tyler Maxson from Copeland in 7th, Michael Carter in 8th, Patrick Gallagher, another series champion, in 9th, and then Stephen McAleer, who Mo talked about having troubles in lap 1 at Alabama last weekend, rolls off in 10th. Tom, as we work a little bit farther down the grid, David Staub starts 11th, but Robert Noacre rolls off 12th. He was involved in a pretty scary lap 1 shunt here in the opening season, or the season opener last season, apologies. The youngster rolling off 12th when we get going here. Anybody else on this grid that you're keeping your eye on, Tom, as we get ready to go?
Well, of course, we've got some veteran favorites from the prototype ranks, and our Mazda friends at Tristan Nunez and Harry Tinknell are joining us. So it'll be interesting to see how they fare in this this battle.
Yeah, you bring up a great point, Tom. We've got some pretty big hitters from the Mazda Motorsports DPI program at the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship who are joining us in this race today. But it's a full field of cars, 35 on the entry list to get going here today. Everybody is ready to go, and we're out on the pace laps. As we take a look here at Circuit of the Americas, getting ready to get going here. And Johnny, I think we are set to go. I'm not sure what else we've got. Under about 30 seconds to the green flag as field makes their way around the pace lap.
Yeah, holding the field around for the moment. So it's a short pace lap here. We won't begin around the full layout, but we are using that full Grand Prix course, if you're wondering. There are a multitude of layouts available on iRacing. So if you want to get involved, visit iRacing.com. Get yourself a subscription. The Mazda MX-5, the hottest car raced on the iRacing service by the most accounts. And there's a reason why this car is so popular. It gives us brilliant racing, and we're ready to kick off round 2 of the battery tender Global Mazda MX-5 Cup eSeries. And as soon as that green flag waves, Matt Cresci will floor it up to turn number 1, a 24.5-meter climb. And we go green from the Circuit of the Americas, and a brilliant jump by Cresci already. Lockwood, though, under attack from Wagner. I think Wagner's blown the engine.
Yeah, trouble a little bit farther back in the pack, but they all fan out 3, 4, maybe even 5 wide as they make that tall climb up to turn number 1, and they all hit that quick snap apex left-hander at the top of the hill, and they make their way down into right-hander turn number 2. It is the 59 last weekend's winner, Matt Cresci, leading them around the way here. Brian Lockwood in that bright orange number 43 hot on his tail, and boy, Celine Roland already up from 4th into 3rd. Tom, as the field makes their way through the S's, car setup is everything in a very technical section like that here at COTA.
Yeah, Tony, big news there at the start. Can't believe we have one of our front-running cars already out of the race. It looked like you could see a big puff of smoke out the back, maybe missed the shift. I know Gresham Wagner is going to be really heartbroken about that. You did mention about setups. Keeping in mind, this is a fixed setup, so all the drivers have the same identical setup here, and it really puts an emphasis on the driving talent and skills rather than the engineering aspect of getting the ideal platform.
Field make it. field making their way down the back straightaway now, Mo. It looks like Celine Roland's got a little bit of a gap over the 08 of Michael Carter, another Mazda Scholarship winner. Stephen McAleer looking good right there as we have a shot of him. But other than tough luck for Gresham Wagner, we're off and running here pretty cleanly, Mo.
And looking at Celine Roland in third place and Michael Carter in fourth place, the last 2 years Rookie of the Year, if that came out cleanly, of the real series. And both of these guys raced hard and close last year. These guys spent so much time door handle to door handle that at times tempers were flared and tested during the season. And here they are in iRacing. At least they're sitting quite far apart. Selena's in Orlando, Florida, and Michael is in Savannah, Georgia. So they can't reach out and get physical with each other, but they are as close as they ever have been in the real series. And when they get close together, they ask nor give a quarter to each other.
It was certainly entertaining racing last season between those two guys. Field coming around to complete the opening lap here at Circuit of the Americas. 40 minutes of racing on the dock, and it was last weekend's winner, the round one victor, and the pole winner here in qualifying. Matt Cressy snakes them down to the inside of the front straightaway as they lead them back up the hill. But Johnny, lap one, and things are already kind of heating up here in MX-5 Cup.
The good news for Gresham Wagner after blowing the engine is that the drivers are allowed a fast repair. So what that means is they're able to head back to the pits and take anything from even a 1 second repair to a 3-week repair in a second. So Gresham Wagner will be out on the racetrack and won't have lost a lap, although he'll be very far behind now from the lead order as we ride on board with Celine Roland. What an improvement Roland has made, TLP, from last week. He was around about the top 10 range last week, bottom end of the top 10. Now he's up to where he really should be in the real world.
Well, and I think that goes along so much, Johnny, with what things like Tom Long and I were talking about during our rehearsal race last week. And Tom, you can chime in here. Just like the drivers you coach in the real world, the more seat time you get, whether it's in a real race car or a sim rig like the one all these drivers are piloting, the more time you get, the faster you get. So really, it should be no surprise that Celine Roland is getting quicker and quicker. We check in now, it looks like, on a battle for position. That's Patrick Gallagher working on the number 9 of Justin Piscadell. That's the fight for 8th place. Piscadell's going to try to cross Gallagher back over, but Gallagher does a good job coming out of turn 11 for that long run down the back straightaway. Move Gallagher up a spot. But yeah, Tom, the more time you get in any kind of race car, virtual or physical, it's going to help you out.
Well, that's exactly right, Tony. I mean, the beautiful thing about iRacing and this platform is that Celine or anybody can spend as much time as they want. You know, it's not cost prohibitive to go iRacing like it would be testing in the real world, and also from a time standpoint. So, you know, every day, every night, you can be practicing here, whereas it's not quite the same way it would be in the real thing.
And we see Brian Lockwood running there in second place. You mentioned Gresham Wagner taking advantage of that fast repair and getting back out on the racetrack. He's back in 27th position at the moment, so he'll climb the ranks. Remember, last week at Barber, Brian Lockwood also had a car issue, took advantage of that fast repair, and came back to set the fastest lap of the race. So let's look for some fireworks from Gresham Wagner as he climbs his way back through.
Absolutely, it's a good point about using that fast repair and getting back out on track. Now things at the front of the field starting to tighten up a little bit as the field unwinds from turn number 20. They snake back down to the inside of the front stretch, getting ready to complete lap number 2. And our top 3 have tightened up quite a lot here. Matt Cressy is going to run down to the inside on the way up the hill to turn number 1. Brian Lockwood close, but not close enough yet. And then in third place, getting closer, is Celine Roland on that 87. Wow, Lockwood looks really good on the exit of corner number 1, but they still stay single file right behind the 59 of Cressy. Lockwood in second, Roland in third. And boy, Mo, just as you said, it's Michael Carter, the young man from Savannah, Georgia, and Celine Roland, the former Mazda dealership employee from Orlando, Florida, running right next to each other in third and fourth. Maxon rounds out your top 5. But Mo, these guys are all over each other here on lap 3.
And 3 of these top 4 guys have at some point over the last few years won a Mazda scholarship to either put them in the series. Actually, all 3 of them. Matt Cressy won the Club Racer Shootout. The following year, Celine Roland won the Club Racer Shootout. and the year after that, Michael Carter won the Club Racer Shootout to earn a season in the real series. And both Carter and Solène Roland parlayed that into Rookie of the Year honors, which comes with its own scholarship. So there's a lot of Mazda scholarship money running around at the front of this field here. In 5th place, Tyler Maxson. We teased him last year. Last week, he talked about some of his old habits. He's 15 years old, people. He doesn't have any old habits, but he certainly knows how to drive a race car fast.
And it looks like a lot of movement a little bit farther back in the grid. Peter Enzer up 16 positions from where he started. Harry Tinknell, one of the Mazda Tinos DPI drivers in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, has gained 4 positions, it looks like, so far in that number 055 Mazda MX-5 Cup. He is up a few positions. Aaron Johnson is moving up. Jackson Robillard. But yeah, there you see Peter Enzer now getting around Tinknell. He is up 17 positions. Oh, a little bit of contact here. One of the cars going around. That looks like the 49. I want to say that's Peter Enzer. Let's check the scoring monitor.
It is Peter Enzer.
So trouble for Enzer here in the infield section of the track. The number 49 driver from Atlanta Speedworks, that's Todd Lamb's team. He goes around there 3 wide a few corners later. Oh, more contact as the 38 goes around. Oh, Mo, this is just like real-life MX-5 Cup racing because these guys are all over each other early on in this race.
Well, unfortunately, that's what happens when the cars are all absolutely identical. As Tom mentioned, this is a fixed setup race, but in real life, these cars there's really not much you can change on these cars, so they end up in a very, very close terms of parity among all the cars. So the driver is really what makes the difference. Harry Tinknell, 15th place. Harry doesn't have any experience in MX-5 Cup racing, but he is an experienced race car driver, obviously, a very successful race car driver, and he does have a lot of experience running in iRacing. And after last week's race, Harry told me this was the most respectful iRace that he had ever been in. He felt the drivers were professional and courteous and respectful, and at the same time really pushing hard for their piece of real estate. So that's a nice endorsement coming from a world-class driver like Harry Tinknell, Formula One winner.
Absolutely, and Tom, as a driver coach and the guy that helped, well, really led the development of this MX-5 Cup car, you know these cars probably better than anybody else. You may not say so, but I would. When you see these drivers out here getting as aggressive as they are, yes, it's a sim race, yes, it's virtual, but what advice, what coaching would you give one of your drivers if they were up in this front pack right now?
Well, I mean, the big thing, Tony, is that we've got a long race ahead of us here, so everybody's biding their time. I mean, they're kind of figuring out where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are relative to the other drivers. I mean, we do see the front pack starting to tighten up here. That's effective the draft. We talked about the draft last week with these cars being open top. They can really suck closer to the car ahead of them because they create a big parachute effect with that open top rather than it being sleek. So, you know, here we go with basically the top 7 cars nose to as we get later into the race. I think we're going to start to see the leaders get a bit more racy. The reason why we're seeing the back of the field racy right now because they don't feel like they want to be there, they want to move forward. So going to be really interesting as this race unfolds.
And up front, as Tom's explaining the different strategies and mindsets in this race, we have got a change for the lead. The number 43 of Brian Lockwood has made his way around pole sitter and round 1 winner Matt Cresci all the way up from second now to first. Tyler Maxson getting a little jiggy with it with Harry Voigt right now in the number 21, the 74, and the 21 having a very good battle. And right now that's a fight for 5th position on the track. You see the new leader, that orange machine, Brian Lockwood up to first, Matt Cresci to second, Celine Roland and Michael Carter still sitting 3rd and 4th. But boy, Tom, this fight between Maxson and Voigt, this is the kind of stuff that gets your blood going here early in a race. And here's the replay. This should be the pass for the lead going down the back straightaway. Lockwood pulls out of the draft as Tom was talking about, and then down to the inside, gets hard on the brakes in the prime passing location here at Circuit Americas. Hard on the brakes into turn number 12. These MX-5 Cup cars really rely on momentum. So if you're going to make a pass, Tom, you've got to make sure you keep that motor wound up, keeping high RPMs, and that's exactly what it looks like Brian Lockwood did there.
So, coming up behind all of this action, I want to draw attention to Stephen McAleer. He's pulled right up behind Tyler Maxson, and Tyler, of course, is engaged in that battle with Harry Voigt. And Stephen McAleer is a wily old competitor. He's going to take advantage of those two guys being focused on each other. This is the second full-length iRace that Stephen McAleer has raced today. He was in another series earlier. And as soon as he's finished with this race, he gets in his truck and drives to Roebling Road to test some real race cars tomorrow. So he's a busy man, but right now he's focused on getting to the front. We're a little over a quarter of the way through this race. The leaders have not broken away, not in any measurable way, and Stephen McAleer is one to watch here as this race progresses.
Well, and Tom, as it seems like this virtual racing is doing a fantastic job of replicating the real thing, now it's Crushy back to the inside just one lap later from where he lost the lead originally, and he doesn't even wait for the corner or the braking point to get around the number 43 of Brian Lockwood. So Lockwood gets to lead exactly one lap from turn 12 all the way back around. But boy, Matt Crushy goes right back to it. And Tom, I think you'd agree, this is the kind of back and forth racing that really encourages packs to grow. And that's why we're seeing 3 cars turn into 5 and turn into 7.
Well, that's exactly right. Rather than being efficient, running nose to tail and pushing each other along by making bigger parachute 2-3 wide, having to slow down coming into the corners, that's allowing the extra cars to pass. So being a savvy racer, you realize we need to stay in line to get away from the cars behind. So this is creating a bit of a pack, and it's going to be interesting to see if this pack of 5 through 8th place are going to catch the front leaders right now. So feeling that's what we're going to see. As Mo alluded to, Mr. McAleer is going to be working towards the front, just like we see with some of the others.
Well, we still see the battling continue here down the pack. So Cressy will lead. He set the fastest lap of all the leaders last time round. And we watch Harry Voigt battle with Tyler Maxson. And how about Stephen McAleer here? Now down to the inside in this 24.5-meter rise through turn 1, or an 11% gradient for those of you who may be way smarter than me at math. And look at the bump drafting going on, something we usually see in MX-5 action. Now for today, we're not expecting pit stops, just as we would in the real world. It's going to be 40 minutes of sprint racing. We talked about the fast repairs available to the drivers. The fuel will make it to the end of the race, and these tracks all laser scanned, Mo. So that means when this track was built for iRacing back in 2014, they spent around a year and a half of man hours and got the track done in 6 months. It took about 60 to 80 hours of laser scanning, and that's why this almost looks, I don't want to say almost looks, exactly looks like the real thing.
Well, and that's one of the great advantages of iRacing. It's why real race car drivers throughout the world use iRacing as a training tool, a legitimate and serious training tool, because of the laser scanning of the tracks and the detail that goes into building the cars. If there's a pebble on the racetrack the day they scan it, that pebble is in the iRacing simulation, and that's the authenticity that comes with iRacing. Every race car driver we work with, every race car driver we know, uses iRacing because it's way cheaper than burning up engines and tires and renting tracks. Yet it's so realistic. It's a very, very realistic representation of what the drivers will find when they arrive at a real racetrack. And track time's unlimited. You can be lapping it around these tracks all day long.
Well, we've got a battle for the lead as the field comes out of 14 and 15, and as Matt Cressy tries to keep the 43 of Brian Lockwood behind him. As Tom said, these drivers aren't exactly driving conservatively, putting their heads down and focusing on hitting their marks. They're more paying attention to racing and going door to door with each other, and while entertaining, it's not exactly the best strategy. Field coming now down through the corners, and we see Harry Voigt here, and that should still be Tyler Maxson that he's going side by side, door to door with. That's the fight for 6th, 7th place right now after Stephen McAleer got around to pick up 5th. But throughout this top 10, guys, we've got really good battles. A little bit farther back here, let's see, that's the 61 we're watching. That's Andrew List, Justin Piscatel, Patrick Gallagher. That's 10th, 9th, and 8th. Everybody in this top 10 here fighting. We're not even to halfway yet. Tom, these BF Goodrich tires in the real world, they've got a great life on them. I don't know what you've had as far as simulator seat time experience, but can you speak at all to how the car changes over the course of a run here in 40 minutes?
Yeah, and Tony, you're exactly right. The tire model is so critical here in iRacing. The drivers were talking about that in our post-race interviews at Barber, how basically they were just managing the grip at the end of the race. They didn't have the same amount of grip in the beginning as they did at the end. The BF Goodrich tire is phenomenal. It is such a great tire for the long run throughout the race. Gives grip when it's cold, when it's hot, but as you really slide the car around for a long time, you're going to start to give up grip, so it's a bit of a compromise. And I think by the end of the race, we're going to start to see an increase in lap time based on this. Big movers, though. I'm really impressed. We were watching Andrew List here, a couple other guys throughout the field, as Mo mentioned, Celine Roland, and Michael Carter as well. These guys have really put in the time, obviously, this week to move up the field, and it's great to see the benefit they get from that.
Little bit of damage here, it looks like, perhaps on the number 37 of Eran Jatsan, a former Team USA driver. Not sure exactly what happened there. We check back in now with our lead fight, and it's Brian Lockwood still stalking the number 59 of Matt Cresci. Now Lockwood pulls down to what should be the outside as we get ready for turn number 12. Drivers hard on the brakes, and Cresci doing everything he can. Now it's going to be Celine Roland who comes along for the ride. Roland's going to go door to door for second place with Brian Lockwood, but the track's going to bend back for the double right-hander 13 and 14, and Lockwood's going to hold on to the position. But boy, Mo, Celine Roland, who you mentioned, came out here 2 years ago to win his first ever MX-5 Cup victory in round 2 of the 2018 season. He hasn't lost a bit of his touch at this track, and he is looking very competitive here before halfway.
Absolutely, and you know, his 2018 season, he opened his account by winning here in the first weekend, went on to win Rookie of the Year, had a great season, went into 2019 absolutely as a championship favorite, and went all the way down to the very last race as a championship contender. He was beaten by Brian Ortiz by just a few points in the end. But Celine Roland, absolutely a great racer, class act. But boy, when he gets behind the wheel, he sees the red mist. He does not like to lose, so he's going after these guys with everything he has. And he's pulling Michael Carter with him, another very talented young driver. Michael is still, I think, 21 years old. And he's pulling him along with them. So as these four guys mix it up, Stephen McAleer's got himself solidly into 5th place, and he's going to sneak up on them, or he's going to try to, with a little over half of this race yet to run.
Well, I love this, as this is my first foray, as Johnny talked about, into the virtual world. This is my first iRacing experience. It's uncanny how realistic this feels. Mo and Tom, you both can agree with me from being at the MX-5 Cup races during the course of the year. This feels so realistic. It's not even halfway yet. We've got a massive pack of drivers throughout the front of the field. Tom, this is just so real to what it feels like out of the track.
Oh, it certainly does, Tony. I was just going to say that, you know, with the viewers home, they're watching Cresci and some of the other drivers pulling way offline going down the long straightaways, and just wanted to explain basically what they're trying to do is break the draft. Just like you would in real life, you're trying to move the car out of the way so that way basically you don't have a slipstream, and you're trying to create the car behind to have to make their own power without the additional help. So really interesting how we're seeing this dynamic play out as they head down into turn 12.
The battle for the lead continues here. Have a look at this now. So Matt Cresci on the defensive from the young Brian Lockwood, and through turn 12 he's going to run off the track. They're limited to 25 of those to use for today's event, and now Lockwood will snatch the lead from Cresci. And this race shaping up to be a classic halfway through. Cresci's going to fall down to 3rd because Celine Roland's going to capitalize on the opportunity. And there's contact between the two. Bit of argy-bargy here as Roland will officially head into the 2nd position. And a little bad blood cleanses the soul. Let me tell you that much, because Michael Carter is 4th and looming to make up positions. Now Brian Lockwood here is going to break away from the rest of the pack. Let's see if they can catch him. He's leading by about a 2nd. We're watching round number 2 of the battery tender Global Mazda MX-5 Cup eSeries. Don't leave us. We'll bring you the rest of the race after this.
These days, the events we love will have to wait. Not forever. Just for now. But as an essential service, we're open and ready to help. Especially healthcare heroes. We'll do an enhanced cleaning of your car inside and out. and change the oil for free, even if you don't drive a Mazda. It's the least we can do.
Everybody yearns for something. Few have the drive to reach out and take it. We build for those with the conviction to stand up straight and demand what they want out of life. We champion those who refuse to see the world as it is, but what it could be. We know what we're building for. What are you building for?
Back here at virtual Austin, Texas, the Circuit of the Americas. It's almost a decade old. It's been on in planet Earth and been on the iRacing service now for quite some time. It still feels like a brand new layout. And there's the brilliant observation deck brought to you on this iRacing service. 419 steps. Don't ask me how I know that. Tom Long talked about how that's brilliant cardio for himself. And for myself, Jonathan Simon, welcome back to the coverage alongside Tony Laporta, Mo Murray, and Tom Long himself. We are bringing you all the action for the rest of this 40-minute event here. The battle for the lead continues, though, TLP. We also want to welcome back our Canadian audience from the MAV TV Motorsports Network, and we hope you're enjoying the coverage on YouTube or even the Mazda Motorsports Facebook page. A multitude of places you can watch the race, but this is what I talked about before the broadcast. Brian Lockwood has broken the draft, and now he's about to run away with potentially race victory here for round number 2.
You know, Jonathan, whether it's MAV TV or the Mazda Motorsports YouTube page or your guys' great service at Apex Racing, as we got a slight little bump and run right here for second place. Celine Roland says it's a little bit more than a slight bump and run. He gets moved up out of the groove by the 59 of Matt Cresci. That brings Michael Carter right along for the ride, getting a little jiggy with it here, like a 1980s music video, a little bit of bump and grind. I think we might have a replay right here as the field heads up. Tom, I want you to watch this with me and give me your opinion. Cresci pulls out late on the turn-in, and the 87 looks like he might have been committed, and he pulls a sick McDrift and saves it. Tom Long, what do you score that incident right there?
Yeah, that was a fantastic save by Roland. I know he's not going to be pleased about that, but man, what a save to not loop it and keep it going. I tell you, these MX-5s are so balanced. He definitely took advantage of it. Really a big move that we're seeing here is the two battle of Harry Tinknell and Tristan Nunez, teammates in the Mazda prototype. Knowing Tristan real well from our days together there, it's going to be interesting. They're going to have something fun to chat about after this race, I'm sure.
Well, and Tom, I do want to come back to that in a little bit about the fact that we've got some Mazda Motorsports DPI IMSA WeatherTech drivers out here playing with the MX-5 Cup drivers. But as Jonathan threw it back to us after that break, you know, he was talking about MAV TV, Mazda Motorsports YouTube, Apex Racing YouTube. You know, as my man Mo Murray and I always say, with MX-5 Cup racing, you know, we'll sell you the whole seat, but you're only going to need the edge. And that's clearly what we've got going on here inside of the second half of this race. Mo, round number 2 of the eSeries, certainly not disappointing. Brian Lockwood, Matt Cresci. Cresci scores round number 1 win. Lockwood kind of shows up and gives him a run for his money. You've got Roland and Carter playing their typical roles. Tinknell and Nunez are a little bit farther down the pack. What's more of a surprise to you so far past the halfway point?
Well, I'm very pleased with how clean this race is. I know we've seen some contact and we've seen some bump and run with Cresci and Celine just a few moments ago, but overall this looks like the real thing. This is good, clean for the most part racing and respectful racing, and that's a good thing. I'm pleased to see that. Matt Cresci has been this week and last week has been the find of this iRacing series, because he is very, very fast in this this simulated setup. Love to see Tinknell and Nunez a little further up the ranking, but I guess we can give them a hard time with seeing them where they are. So yeah, there's lots of stories all the way through this, and we have quite a big audience watching us. You mentioned Mazda Motorsports Facebook. Mazda's brand Facebook and YouTube channels are also streaming this, as are our friends in Canada at MAV TV and the wonderful folks at Apex. We have to give a shout out to Ricmotech, who stepped up to help us create this championship and put it together for us. And you know, for anyone watching at any of those non-motorsport centric channels like Mazda's YouTube channel, if you fancy becoming a race car driver, you fancy trying your hand at iRacing, it's a pretty straightforward thing to get into. It doesn't cost nearly as much as buying a race car. iRacing membership, you buy that, you go see a company like Ricmotech and buy yourself a sim rig. Some guys have full complex sim rigs, and other guys have a steering wheel setup, you know, bolted onto their kitchen table. And really, you know, the fast guys, there isn't a pattern. Fast guys are the fast drivers, regardless of the sim equipment they have. They understand how to get the best feel out of the car. So yeah, for people watching at home who want to try this without the expense and the logistics challenges of being a real race car driver and trekking all around the country, this is a great way for people to whet their appetite and dip their toes into racing.
Now we're watching a bunch of different battles around the track right now. Just a moment ago, our very talented iRacing cameramen who are getting paid virtual money to put their talents to work here, they were just catching the battle of Tyler Max and Patrick Gallagher and Harry Voigt. We just saw one car off the track just a moment ago. Going to try and find out exactly who that is. There's a shot of third place driver Michael Carter, the young man out of Savannah, Georgia, enjoying his first season in virtual e-racing, what would be his second season in the Mazda MX-5 Cup Series. He's running in the third position right now. Sounds like it was the number 33 of Alex Bashura who we saw coming back onto the track after an isolated incident. Celine Roland down to fourth after a little bit of contact a few laps ago with second place driver Matt Cresci. But Brian Lockwood now with the biggest lead we've seen of the race so far, 1.7 seconds, and that's longer, Mo, than my last relationship, the lead he has over Matt Cresci.
That doesn't surprise me at all, Tony, because you're so dedicated. You spend so much time in a broadcast booth bringing this exciting racing to fans like me. What a sacrifice.
I'm married to the game. That's all I can say. These drivers are married to the game as well. Lockwood enjoying a comfortable lead right now, coming up on about 11 minutes to go on this one. Cresci is in second. And then let's see here. We've got Patrick Gallagher, Piscatel, and Andrew List. Johnny, this thing is not calming down, even though we've still got over 10 minutes to go here in Texas.
Don't hate the player, hate the game, Tony. I know what you're talking about here as we watch Pat Gallagher trying to make a move up through the S's section. They're trying to make their way past a lapped car there. But remember last week, Tom, Pat Gallagher involved in an incident and should have potentially won that race. So unfortunately for Gallagher, as he made contact with the rear end of Albert Lukazic, it cost him a potential victory and a potential chance of becoming $110 richer, because there is prize money involved in this series.
Yeah, that was a real unfortunate incident. I know nobody was really looking forward to that happening necessarily. It just kind of is one of those things, and unfortunate, and obviously the lap driver got a penalty for that, but at that point the crime is done and there's no justice for it. But you know, it's really interesting we're seeing here as this race is unfolding. Everybody's kind of set into that tempo we've talked about, where they've kind of settled in, and it's going to be really interesting to see if we kind of see a late race push. Want to make also a comment that Mo had mentioned earlier, talking about different sim rigs and how to get involved. It was fun to listen to the lead drivers feedback after the race in what they're using. You know, Cresci mentioning that he has a kind of an older setup, maybe time to upgrade. I think the only upgrade he made is maybe to his seat for this battery tender Global MX-5 Cup eSeries, and it's just interesting to see what everybody's working with to make this come together.
Yeah, absolutely, it is, Tom, and it's fun to watch the amazing. I'll tell you what, this is my first iRacing I'm calling, and it's the most time I've spent watching iRacing. It looks incredible. The realistic camera work. One car off there is Patrick Gallagher just slips by. We had one driver off in between turns 19 and 20, but we're riding on board right now with former series champion Patrick Gallagher from Macomb McAleer Racing, and I think we had a shot out the rear bumper of his MX-5 Cup car just a few moments ago, and I almost fell out of my chair. It felt so realistic. He's working on the Lone Tree, Colorado driver, number 21, Harry Voigt. Right in front of him, Tyler Max in the car ahead of the both of them. Gallagher being very, very smooth on the steering wheel as they make their way another lap around Circuit of the Americas. Tom, as a driver that helped develop the MX-5 Cup car, your family's team and shop Long Road Racing developed this car and built it for so many years, and then also you being a factory driver on the DPI side for Mazda, when you see Tinknell and Jarvis here racing and struggling, admittedly, to keep up with these MX-5 Cup regulars, Tom, what are they going through driving a different vehicle like this?
Well, certainly. I mean, the if you call it the MX-5 Cup car or any other car, you know, when you are so dialed in as a race series and a driver, a front-running driver in that series, you know all the ins and outs, all the nuances to the vehicle, and so it's going to make it really tough for someone just to show up, no matter how much racing experience they have or how many races they've won, to just show up and be able to compete. You know, pick your favorite driver, I think, from any series to come in and try to lead this Global MX-5 Cup race would be a very, very difficult task. So I think, you know, we saw this last week that Harry was able to finish inside a top 15. You know, he's a bit better than that this weekend. So I think you're going to find that every time they get more practice, we're going to see them moving up. But it's a tall task.
Great shot right here of Gresham Wagner, who finished second in round one last week. He had troubles on the opening lap, blowing the engine, got the fast repair, and he's back up to 18th here, Mo.
Yes, Gresham taking advantage of that fast repair, and you mentioned, Tom, Harry Tinknell and Tristan Nunez. They're in this race, but they're not eligible for prize money or points. As Mazda factory drivers, we invited them to participate, but said, you guys can't come in and take the prizes. You know, they got some work to do before they're getting up. Thinking about taking prizes away from these guys, but they're not eligible for points. But if you think about the points battle at the front, Brian Lockwood didn't have a great race last weekend. He had to use that fast repair. He left the Barber race last Tuesday with 17 points. Matt Cressy, who won the race and led the most laps, he left with 31 points. So, you know, as we come down into the last 6 or 7 minutes of this race, Cressy's looking at Lockwood leading, thinking, do I really want to push that hard? I've got a nice points pad in front of him. But if Lockwood wins the race and Cressy finishes second, that's going to close up that points gap. And we'll only be 2 races through this 5-race series. So this is already shaping up to be a pretty interesting points battle. And Johnny mentioned the $110 to the winner. But remember, at the end of the championship, at the end of the 5 races, Mazda will pay the champion of the series $1,500. With $1,000 for second and $500 for third. So there's decent prize money up here for people who do all 5 races and stay as a championship contender.
I love it.
Certainly with $1,500, Matt Cressy could buy himself a new seat.
Oh, you're scared to think of what $1,500 could go to in today's economy. It'd be tough to spend all of it myself. Patrick Gallagher and Harry Voigt having a good little go of it. The behind the scenes, I guess you wouldn't call it an intercom, a team chat that we in the commentary booth are having right now is just awesome. Jonathan Simone has some really good ideas for what MX-5 Cup race stewards could do to spice things up. Johnny, I'm not sure if awarding points for side-to-side contact on the front straightaway is the best idea, but I want to let you know that as president, I would vote for you if that were your platform.
Well, you know, in virtual environment, you don't have to invoice anything. You don't have to worry about damaging the car too much. So I would award championship points for a bit of bad blood racing, as we watch here between Celine Roland and Michael Carter. But you see that the thing, now that they've got a fast repair, if they wear out the sponsors on the side of the car, they can come into the pit lane, repair the car, and go at it again.
It's the beautiful part of virtual racing, and a little bit more action right here. Whoa! It's Tyler Maxson going for a sweet McDrift over in the final corner, but he catches Harry Voigt in the 21. Voigt goes around, and Patrick Gallagher just runs through the whole thing. Oh my goodness, Harry Voigt, the Colorado native for Slipstream Performance, falls way out of where he was running. Let's take a look at it here, Tom. Help me break this down. They get on the curbing, and then they snake back for the left-handers. Patrick Gallagher clips the left rear of the 74 at Tyler Maxson, and when Maxson collects the thing, it ends up grabbing the 21. Tom, I don't know, what do you think about all that?
Yeah, I mean, Tyler certainly had a big slide going early on. It looked like he was going to catch it, but just as the radius of that corner tightens up, he had all the steering angle he could give it, and unfortunately it wasn't enough, and Harry just caught the left front of Tyler as they went around. So now they're both with a bit more damage moving along. It's going to be a battle of attrition here as we're winding down the minutes. Mo mentions about a good championship battle here. Is it worth chasing down Lockwood? Thinking about long term as we move down into the series for next week, Road America is going to be a big variable with all the drafting that we're seeing here, even more so at Road America. So we've got a good little race on our hands coming from out of here into Road America.
Well, we're coming to the closing laps here, and it looks like Brian Lockwood is still running away with a potential victory, and he's pedaling away quite quickly in that 6 sideways Mazda MX-5 car, using all the racetrack here, and he's got 25 credits to spend. 25 times he can run off the track in this race before he will be given a penalty. So he's decided in these final laps to start using the credits and gaining lap time on Matt Cresci in the 2nd position. Cresci looks good for a podium, but it's that final podium position yet to be decided between Celine Roland and Michael Carter. Behind them, rounding out the top 5, is Stephen McAleer. Right behind him is Pat Gallagher, who should have potentially been our race 1 victor last week at Barber, but will only settle for the bottom end of your top 10 today. Tyler Maxson into 7th ahead of Piscatell, and rounding out the top 10 is Andrew List and Harry Voigt after his incident, only in 10th. Glenn McGee follows closely behind. So the closest fight shaping up in this race to end the event is going to be between Celine Roland and Michael Carter. Tyler Maxson still holding firm for 7th position, but we're approaching the white flag TLP, and it means that they'll only have just over 2 minutes to go. And as I say that, Tyler Maxson's race has turned upside down.
Yeah, not the race that he has wanted, certainly not the last 2 laps that he's wanted after contact over in that similar area of the track with the 21 of Harry Voigt and the 29 of Pat Gallagher. Let's see what we can catch here on the instant replay. That's the 74 who gets a little bit of help through that corner from the number 9, and Maxson has nowhere to go, mostly because his rear tires were lifted up off the ground. And incident responsibility may be coming up. Battle for what should be the 3rd position right here. Carter down to the inside. Those rear brake rotors are glowing, Tom, as Carter gets the job done. Move him up a spot to P3 in front of Roland.
Yeah, that was a brilliant pass down into 1, and I tell you, Maxson has not had any luck through turn 15, 2 laps in a row getting turned there. But, here we go on the last lap, making the passes, what we're talking about, biding your time. I know that these guys are saving that they're off-track occurrences to this very end. Kind of reminds me about it, a little bit of a push to pass, if you will, to use up their credits here at the end of the race to maximize the run to the checkered flag.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't think Celine Roland is done yet as he throws 2 wheels up in the air heading through turns 8 and 9. He's working on everything he can to get back in front of Michael Carter. That's the battle we're watching for right now. It's going to be the final spot on the podium. 3rd place as we ride on board now with the Orlando, Florida driver Celine Roland. They unwind out of 11 and make their way down the back straightaway one final time. Boy, Matt Cresci led this race for a long time, Johnny, but here on the final lap, Brian Lockwood has turned into Carol Baskin's husband, and he is out of here because he has taken over this race, dominated, coming to the checkered flag, less than half a lap to go, and the only thing we're watching is this fight for 3rd place as Crater and Roland try to settle it out here coming to the checkered flag, Johnny.
And breaking news, the number 9 of Justin Piscatell will receive a 30-second post-race penalty. How about Celine Roland heading in to turn 13 and into the stadium section designed upon the Hockenheim Stadium section. Slow down a little bit to help the fans watch the action, and Celine Roland will seal third position coming into 17 and 18. But through those corners as well is Brian Lockwood, and with a couple corners to go, he will claim a victory he ever so wanted at Barber. Incidents put him out of the top three. He set the fastest lap of the race. He finally gets to show his true pace, and with one corner to go, he's going to do it. He's going to be winner for round 2 of the battery tender Global Mazda MX-5 Cup eSeries, and 6 Sideways will be celebrating virtually at home for sure.
And here we go, that race for third place coming all the way down to the line, and it's going to end up going to Celine Roland, who scored his first ever victory here 2 years ago in round number 2. So congratulations to Lockwood Cressy, your round 1 winner, comes home with a second place. Celine Roland is going to round out the podium. Little bit of side-by-side contact still going on here out of the final corner, coming to the finish line. Roland third, Carter fourth, and McAleer is going to round out your top 5 here in round number 2 at Texas, Johnny.
And Harry Ticknell, we're still racing here down the outside of the top 10. He's in the 14th position, right ahead of Tristan Nunez, who's trying to make up some spots here. Nunez will fall foul, and he will finish in 15th. What a race that was here from the Circuit of the Americas, and a very socially distanced crowd in the background will enjoy that for sure. And we'll look at the race results after this for sure, but we hope you enjoyed all the racing action so far. It's Brian Lockwood who's won the race ahead of Cressy, ahead of Roland. We'll speak to your top 3 after this. Don't leave us.
Everybody yearns for something. Few have the drive to reach out and take it. We build for those with the conviction to stand up straight and demand what they want out of life. We champion those who refuse to see the world as it is, but what it could be. We know what we're building for. What are you building for?
These days, the events we love will have to wait. Not forever, just for now. But as an essential service, we're open and ready to help, especially healthcare heroes. We'll do an enhanced cleaning of your car inside and out, and change the oil for free, even if you don't drive a Mazda. It's the least we can do.
Drivers on their cool-down lap after what was a thrilling event for round 2 of the battery tender Global Mazda MX-5 Cup eSeries, presented by BF Goodrich and Ricmotech Simulation Racing Systems. Great event, TLP. We'll look at your final race results, and it was Brian Lockwood who took this victory, a well-deserved victory for the 6 Sideways machine, winning by 1.2 seconds. And remember, it all came just before our first ad break there. Brian Lockwood broke away from the rest of the pack, and they couldn't keep within the draft, and that was the difference for the young man.
Yeah, no, it was a very exciting start to the race, and just like Global MX-5 Cup racing in the real world, it stayed close and tight all the way through the very end. The graphics up, but I think we've got Lockwood out there burning the BF Goodriches down to the ground here in Austin, Texas. Matt Cressy led early on after scoring the pole position in qualifying, and after a good battle ends up coming home in second. Celine Roland rounds out the podium in third after a last lap battle with Georgia driver Michael Carter. Stephen McAleer rebounds after a tough opening round in Alabama 1 week ago to finish in fifth. Patrick Gallagher also has a little bit of revenge here as he comes back to finish in sixth. Justin Piscatel seventh, Andrew List eighth, Harry Voigt ninth, and then Glenn McGee, the virtual driver turned real race car driver, finishes in 10th. Mo, the rest of the top 15 sees Tyler Maxon in 11th, John Son in 12th, No Acre, and Harry Tinknell 13th, 14th, with Mazda DPI driver Tristan Nunez stacking up right behind his teammate in the 15th position.
And Harry and Tristan, as we saw across the finish line together, and I'm quite sure that's going to lead to lots of fun when they sit around the lunch table at future IMSA WeatherTech Championship races.
Well, I'll be sure to bring it up to him when we get back on the road. Hernan Palermo 16th, David Staub 17th, as you see our winner. Second place, Matt Cresci, Brian Lockwood in the center, and Celine Roland. That's your podium, sitting 3 abreast just outside of turn number 20 here on the front straightaway. And I think we're getting ready to talk to our winner. Is that what we're going for here, Johnny? Do we have Brian Lockwood?
We're trying to get Brian Lockwood. He's probably still enjoying the victory in the cockpit, but we will drag him up in a moment's time. Here he is, I believe. Brian Lockwood, do we have you? He's probably still in the cockpit, so we'll when he's ready, we'll grab him for sure. But a brilliant victory from himself, and one to remember for sure. Remember, at TLP, he had the pace at Barber, and I think we've got him, Brian.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. Congratulations on the victory. A good one for sure. It makes amends for the incident at Barber, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. Really happy to be able to win this one. I thought this would be a really weak track for me. I'm not usually a fan of COTA, so to come away with a win and to have it squeaky clean like that, I'm super happy.
Brian, you talk about COTA being not one of your favorite tracks, and I actually, honestly, from speaking to other MX-5 Cup drivers, you're not the only one to feel that way. How much different is this place in iRacing? I feel like it's not very different, but maybe your success tells a different story.
Well, I don't think it's that different. I have been training a lot on iRacing, and I have a little bit more practice on COTA than I did last year. The biggest difference is just not being able to take the lines we're taking in real life. You know, in real life, we're using all of the runoffs. We're using a ton of just if you can extend the track, we're doing it. And iRacing really limits that. So that's a certainly a big difference. Not necessarily one that I enjoy, but it is what it is.
Well, for not enjoying it and having a tough time at this track, you certainly impressed and did a really good job. You took it to Matt Cresci early on in this race. Before halfway, you guys were already dusting it up. The battling, the side-by-side, the racing close, it's such a normal thing in MX-5 Cup racing in the real world. How close does iRacing relate to this? Are you able to really lay it all out on the line with a guy like Cresci like you are in the real world, or is iRacing keeping it more reserved? What's it like going wheel-to-wheel in this kind of virtual realm?
I think it's 1-to-1. I think it's exactly the same. The racecraft, the fighting. Of course, it depends on the equipment you're using. I'm in a virtual reality headset, so I don't have such great peripheral vision, but I can look over and see just how close the car is. Stuff like that. You know, I've always said that racecraft and wheel-to-wheel racing, that's the single thing that it didn't take me any time at all to go from the Sim MX-5 to the real-world MX-5. And start duking it out wheel to wheel. That was really just an immediate transfer. Where the driving, it took a little longer, you know, feeling the G-forces, the little quirks of the car. But yeah, racing in iRacing is just fantastic.
Well, Brian, you put together a fantastic race. We're watching a replay right now of the opening lap. Cresci got away early, but you did not only a fantastic job of reeling him back in, but making the right moves. Congratulations on the victory, and we can't wait to see you in 1 week's time at Road America. Congratulations again, Brian.
Thanks, Tony.
All right, that's your winner here in round 2. Brian Lockwood scoring it here in Austin, Texas at Circuit of the Americas. Johnny.
Well, we will say goodbye to our MAV TV Motorsports Network in Canada. You can join us for post-race coverage on YouTube or the Mazda Motorsports Facebook page. More interviews coming up after this.
These days, the events we love will have to wait. Not forever, just for now. But as an essential service, we're open and ready to help, especially healthcare heroes. We'll do an enhanced cleaning of your car inside and out, and change the oil for free, even if you don't drive a Mazda. It's the least we can do.
We've seen a lot over 150 years. That doesn't mean we've seen it all.
Back here at the Circuit of the Americas. We hope you've joined us, whether or not you've joined us from the MAV TV Motorsports Network, you've joined us for the post-race show on the internet. Welcome to the coverage here from virtual COTA. Now it's time to bring you more post-race coverage. Matt Cresci is available. Matt, can you hear us? Do we have you?
Hey, all loud and clear, guys.
Lovely stuff. You've come home second. Brilliant for the championship for yourself. I tell you what, a decent round to go out from. And, you know, after you lost the draft from Brian Lockwood, I really felt like that was the best you could have hoped for.
Yeah, I was hoping for his exact situation on the first couple laps. I was hoping Celine and Brian maybe might start battling a little bit, and it would give me a little gap just to get out of the draft. But the complete opposite happened, and I battled Celine, and unfortunately, I think we had a little netcode thing, and that gave Brian and I just a little time trial for the end.
Matt, it's Tony Laporta here. Obviously, fantastic start to the season, as Johnny said. Really, what do you attribute at the end of the race there when Brian was able to get away from you? We speculated and watched a lot of the fact that, you know, you guys were allotted 25 incidences. They've been called, you know, mostly running off the track, exceeding track limits. A few of us speculated that because he was out in front, he was running out wide, and that was helping him get out in front of you. What do you attribute that late race surge of his to?
Yeah, I think he was using his, basically, if we have a set amount of times we can go off track, he was using his very wisely, whereas I was kind of saving mine until the last 2 or 3 laps. So that's why in the last lap or two, you saw the gap drop down and I finally caught his draft. But I probably should have done that sooner in hindsight, right?
Matt, Tom Long here. Great run, man. Looking at championship points, you're sitting pretty.
Yeah, it was about as good as results as I could hope for. I was hoping to just kind of keep it on the track, and things got a little dicey about halfway through, so I'm just happy that we were able to stick it on the podium.
Kind of looking forward to Road America. You know, it's sometimes such a gamble there with the big draft and the big trains. I mean, what are you expecting moving forward?
Yeah, I need to get my lucky rabbit foot out because I've never had a huge amount of luck with the draft. So Road America is going to be a monster, and I think it's just going to be about running clean and trying to salvage as many points as possible while keeping it on the track.
Matt, this is Mo Murray. You know, you won last weekend, and Brian didn't have a great weekend. You came into this race with a 14-point advantage. Brian gets out in front of you. You raced with him for most of the race, but at the end, you know, he put a gap on you, or you let him go. Were you thinking about points as the race wound down, or does that not enter your frame of mind at this early stage in the championship?
No, I wanted the win, so I was driving hard the whole second half of the race, just trying to keep the car on the track so I wouldn't get a drive-through penalty from going off the track too many times. But I think I just waited too late to use my off-track incident points, and therefore I couldn't close the gap early enough. So next time I'll have to take that into consideration and do it a lot earlier.
And Matt, we've been talking to a lot of the drivers. You know, we just spoke to Brian and the relation to this iRacing to the real thing. And from our commentary side, Tom and Mo and Johnny and myself, you know, it felt very familiar to an MX-5 Cup race. And while I know you weren't on the road with us last year, you know, you've been in the MX-5 Cup series for a long time. You know, this racing. As a driver, you know, what's it feel like to go from the real world to this iRacing stuff? How similar is it? What's different? Can you just give us a few ideas?
I totally agree. I mean, it's super similar, especially in terms of the racecraft. So having to be strategic in your positioning, especially relative to the draft on a track like this, or even more so with Road America next week. But aside from that, I find it really weird that when I'm racing in a real car, I feel like my heart rate goes down, and I find myself very zen and calm. But in this, I am schwitzing pretty good right now. It's super intense. I can't really explain why. I think it's just because it's such an even playing field here. You know, MX-5 Cup itself is the most even playing field. This is even more so because it's all digital, obviously, right? So if you make any mistake, it's going to punish you big time.
And then Lockwood just looked phenomenal from the start. Did you expect, when you looked into this race going into it and you knew who was going to be some of the game players and the guys you were going to have to really deal with, did you suspect Brian? I don't know if you two have had much time racing against each other in the real world. Did you expect to have to contend with Lockwood as much as you did?
Definitely. I saw that
Want
he's
people
been
to take him
competing
out.
in some pretty massive events recently, and he's basically like a top 40 in the world iRacer. So I'm just happy to be sticking with him for now that I've just gotten my dusty old wheel out, and I think towards the end of the season it's going to be a monster battle.
All right. Well, Matt, again, congratulations on the win last weekend. I wasn't around to be able to say it to you. Great run today in second place, and just thanks for talking to us, man.
You bet. Thanks for having me, and I'll see you guys next week.
Celine Roland coming up next, it looks like, Johnny.
Yeah, and it'll be great to chat to him. And Celine, we got you?
I'm here.
Oh, that's lovely. What an improvement from last week, mate. You're jumping into the car, you've got more seat time for yourself, and you're back where you belong, just like the real world, up near the top.
Geez, yeah. Definitely an improvement. Barber wasn't my strong suit, as you guys saw, but I like COTA a lot in real life, so I think that showed here. Matt and Brian they're aliens, I feel like, so who knows if they're actually driving, but it might be an alien back there. But it was an exciting race. I was really happy to be up there.
Celine, it's Tony, man. Fantastic job. Again, as always, I wasn't able to be around for race one, so to see you come out and do as well as you did in round two. How crazy was it having Carter right there alongside of you? Mo Murray and I were talking about how similar this felt to the real world last season. You and Carter seemed to always find each other last year. What was that like having to deal with the 08 all race long here in the virtual world?
Geez, yeah, you're right. It's exactly like it should be. Michael and I have raced for many years before MX-5 Cup, so we're always stacked up next to each other, and we've already texted. We were texting before and after the race. We texted before how we're scared for qualifying because we didn't know what to expect, and then after we were talking about how good of a battle that was. But it was great to have him there, and it was really cool to have Matt, myself, and Brian up there. I'm sure Mo mentioned, but having the 2017, 2018, and 2019 MRT24 shootout winners right there.
Celine, Tom Long here. Great race, man. Was really happy to see you moving up from Barber into the fold here. Looked like you had some exciting moments, specifically into turn one. A brilliant save there. Looks like you got a little help and managed to save it. I think that was probably what sealed the deal to keep a podium spot alive for you.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know what happened there. I know I hear this term netcode going around a lot, which I think that's just gonna happen with all these computers trying to talk to one another. It seemed like it happened. I'm watching the replay. It looks like we didn't actually touch, but my car moved as it touched. So it's an odd situation, but the important thing is I did save it, and I was able to squeeze out a podium there. I didn't have it locked up. I still had to catch Michael there, but I was lucky to build that gap between the top four and fifth place to have that cushion and still fight for the podium.
Celine, this is Mo. Obviously, COTA holds fond memories for you. You opened your MX-5 Cup scorecard here with great effect at the beginning of the 2018 season. How close is the real COTA and the iRacing COTA? How do you feel that it's a good representation of the racetrack?
I think it is a good representation. I know prior to that, my debut in 2018, I did a lot of laps in COTA, and then I distinctly remember my first few laps on track. I was like, wow, they did a really good job. It's definitely a little. I think the different part is, the turtles are in different spots. I know, like when we run, there's like 3 turtles on the exit of every turn. But here, there's the ones on like in the S's that will, if you touch them, they send you launching, and they actually damage your car. So you definitely got to get as close as you can and not touch those turtles, especially in the S's.
And for the folks who are watching who aren't motorsports aficionados, by turtles you mean those yellow curbs, those yellow bump curbs right at the exit or the apex of the corners.
Yep, a lot of people call them the sausage curve. I don't know why, but yeah, those sausage curves.
Well, it's good to talk to you. I am looking forward to seeing you at a real race as soon as we are free to go back racing. And it's good to see you on the podium here. iRacing version of Battery Tender MX-5 Cup.
Thank you, Mo. Thank you, everyone. Thanks to my crew chief Preston Partis of eSeries Motorsports. That was a great time, and he helped me out. And yeah, looking for the next one.
So good stuff from Salim Roland, who scores his first podium of the E-Series and is $30 richer for himself. So brilliant stuff. We're going to speak to Pat Gallagher in a second, and he mentioned netcode. For those who may be watching virtual racing for the first time, that's where there's basically ghost contact between two cars, and it's just due to all the different connections, as Celine said, connecting from different computers, so it can happen. But hey, no arguments about the sausage curbs. They do look like sausages, but there's always a better way to call anti-cut strips, I think, for sure. So there you go. Pat Gallagher is up next, who came home in the 6th position. Not the best result for yourself, Pat, but hey, a little cleaner compared to last week at Barber.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a lot of fun. I mean, last week was a letdown. I think I had them pretty well covered there. That was not the case this week. I was at VIR this past weekend testing my GT4 car for this season. That's hopefully going to start soon. So I didn't get time to practice, and you saw it on the score sheet.
Pat, it's TLP. I miss you most of all. That's the first thing I had to tell you. I wish you were around more often and we were at racetracks together. But my next question is, we ran a rehearsal race a few weeks ago, or a few days ago rather, and if I remember correctly, in that rehearsal race, you had a very different looking race car. A, am I correct? And B, what happened to it?
You are correct. It was very, very different. It was a number 3 senior car, and you know, I wanted to run the MMR car that I won the championship with in 2017. Obviously, McCumbee McAleer raced and helped me out, so I figured I would throw the scheme on for old time's sake.
I mean, it's a good-looking car, the McCumbee McAleer one. We won't knock that, but is there a chance that we could see that number 3 do it for Dale car, make an appearance sometime this season? I'm really hoping so.
I mean, yeah, why not? We'll, are we going to do an oval? Can we add a race? Maybe Bristol, Martinsville, something like that?
We could do that given the fact that the repair bills are virtual.
Yeah, I'm not sure about an oval, Pat, but you had a great race. Tom Long has been in here in the booth watching you as well. Tom, I think you've done some work with Pat. I'm not sure. What do you make of his race today?
Yeah, Pat, great race, buddy. What do you think about moving forward? I mean, you had a brilliant race at Barber. You had a solid race here. I mean, we go to Road America next. You know, it's going to be interesting with the big draft. What do you think? Is it a bit of a wild card talking about ovals like Talladega, or you think you're in more control?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think qualifying is really important. You saw it today here, like in the real race at COTA when MX-5 Cup comes there. You see so many lead changes, and this was a lot more tame. The draft seems to affect the lap time, but it's harder to pass people. So I don't know what we're going to see at Road America next week, but I think the draft will be huge. But I think qualifying is the most important thing. I mean, the guys who qualify in the top 3 or 4 seem to stay there, and if you get back to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that's where stuff starts to go sideways. So we'll see. I don't know. I can tell you I'm going to do a little bit more practice this week.
Patrick, this is Mo again. I remember you had an epic win in the real MX-5 Cup cars at Road America a couple of years ago. I think you came off the last corner in 5th position and drafted your way to a win as we climbed the hill there. Road America next week, big drafting track. The week after that, we go to Mid-Ohio, and you have a long relationship with Ohio. Looking forward to going there?
Yeah, man, I'm actually really excited. I obviously love Mid-Ohio. It's only an hour and a half up the road. I think that one's going to be probably my best chance to win as far as on outright speed, kind of like Barber was. When you get to these draft tracks, man, you just don't know where you stand. You're 10th in practice, but you don't know if you were the only one who did a solo lap. So we'll see. It's hard telling, not knowing, man, but I'm excited to get there.
Good. It's good to see you in this series, Patrick. It's good to see you in an MX-5 Cup car, and particularly in that McCumbee McAleer livery that you took to a championship victory a few years ago. McCumbee McAleer, of course, are one of the stalwarts of the series and have supported many, many drivers. And even in this race, Stephen McAleer is participating in this race too. So it's good to see you here. It's good to see that livery back on a racetrack. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Thanks to Mazda, Battery Tender, and the Prelic family for everything that they do for this series. Still the best racing to watch. Maybe I'll make a comeback in real life someday. Who knows?
Oh, that would be worth the price of admission. Johnny?
So that was Pat Gallagher, who came home sixth today, just outside the top 5. It's time to look at where he stands in terms of the championship. So Matt Cresci does officially lead the standings, and it's a brilliant stuff for him, as we don't have the standings up on screen, but we can confirm unofficially anyway that Matt Cresci does hold the points lead, and he could be TLP $1,500 richer come the end of this 5-round campaign.
Well, $1,500 certainly nothing to sneeze at. It's why I got into virtual announcing, and if I would have known that it was something you could make virtual racing, I would have gotten into it as well. Here we go. Boy, the Apex Racing TV guys are sharp. I will give them that. I've had the fortune to work with a lot of broadcast groups, Johnny, but you guys got it certainly fired up. Matt Cresci, there you see right there, 56 points at the top of the leaderboard after a win in a second place. Brian Lockwood throws his name into the ring with 47 points after the win today. Glenn McGee, the virtual racer, turned real racing driver, is third. Carter is fourth. And after a podium finish today, Celine Roll-On rounds out your top 5. Harry Voigt out of Lone Tree, Colorado, a fellow Coloradoan. Proud to see him up there. He's in 6th. Gresham Wagner, wow, he rallies after a blown engine on lap number 1 to finish up and sit 7th in the standings. Piscatel is 8th. Maxon is 9th. Patrick Gallagher is in the 10th position. Robert Noaker, 11th. McAleer, 12th. Harry Tinknell gets up there into 13th place. And then David Staub and Andrew List round out your top 15. So that's how it looks 2 rounds in to the 5-race Battery Tender Global MX-5 Cup presented by BF Goodrich eSeries.
And it's going to be a thrilling round at Road America next time out. It will host the next round of action for the Battery Tender Global Mazda MX-5 Cup eSeries presented by BF Goodrich and Ricmotech Simulation Racing Systems. What a beautiful venue Road America will be. We're using the entire full layout of the circuit, and the draft effect will be ever so critical around there. So 1 week's time, join us around this splendid venue you see on screen. It'll be broadcasted on Apex Racing TV. We'll be live on the MAV TV Motorsports Network for our Canadian audience, and of course too on the Mazda Motorsports Facebook page and associated social channels now. Matt Cresci holds a brilliant championship lead. He didn't win today. That went to Brian Lockwood, who's slowly closing in to the championship lead, and he could be $1,500 richer come the final round at Laguna Seca in 3 weeks' time. But for now, though, from myself, Jonathan Simon, Tony Laporta, Mo Murray, and Tom Long, we will say so long from the virtual circuit of the Americas, and we'll see you in a week's time at Road America.
These days, the events we love will have to wait. Not forever, just for now. But as an essential service, we're open and ready to help, especially healthcare heroes. We'll do an enhanced cleaning of your car inside and out, and change the oil for free, even if you don't drive a Mazda. It's the least we can do.
We've seen a lot over 150 years. That doesn't mean we've seen it all.